Well, hello again, everybody. This is John Norris of Trading Perspectives. As always, we have our good friends Sam Clement and Courtney Trush. Y'all say hello.
How's it going?
Hey, John.
Hey, guys. Recently I've been taking a look at the Instagram. Courtney's back on social media, all that stuff. And we were both laughing about the same reel that popped across the Instagram feeds. Maybe we follow some of the same people. I don't know. And it's this old clip, probably back from probably 82 to 85. Where people are saying they've got these rednecks and they're saying, well, government's now telling us we can't drink beer in our car. Now, the first one is this guy, obviously a blue-collar worker, very country, probably very southern. That's the reason why national media comes down to places like Alabama to get ignorant people to talk. Yes. And this guy goes, man, after a hard day work, all I want to do is have a couple beers in the car on the way home. And then they have this woman, she's clearly not terribly well educated, a cracker, I think in a certain time they would have called her. And she has a baby in the front seat just kind of strapped in. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, she's smoking a cigarette. And she goes, first they told us we had to have seat belts. Now they say we can't drink in the car. And the thing about it is, it's funny because for me, I'm old enough where I remember a lot of this stuff. I remember when there were no open container laws in cars, and I remember when state of Alabama actually went through with the safety belt issue. It was probably mid to late 80s, and people were upset about it. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of states that recently have passed helmet laws if you drive a motorcycle. South Carolina is one of the ones that doesn't have it. It always amazes me. Why would you want to drive a motorcycle out on the interstate without a helmet going 80 miles an hour? If something messes up, it's pretty certain what's going to happen. But, you have to have insurance to drive a car. You have to be of a certain age in order to buy a beer. You have to be of a certain age to buy nicotine or tobacco products. You have to be all these ages, and at every turn it seems as though the government is out trying to protect us in some form or fashion, and I kind of have to wonder, when does it stop?
Yeah, that begs the question of what's kind of too much for it. You mentioned insurance, but really all you have to have is insurance protecting the other drivers. You don't really have to protect yourself or your own car as much. It's those externalities that typically the government, reaching in is trying to protect, whether it's hurting other people outside yourself. Helmets are maybe a little different, seatbelts kind of getting close to that line, but it begs the question, at what point does the government need to step back from trying to protect people from themselves?
I just find it interesting because I do think that it is a generational thing that, John, to your point, you remember the days that you didn't necessarily have a seatbelt in the car.
No, it was in the car, but you just didn't have to wear it.
Yeah, and I guess, I was an 80s baby, and so I remember having that, where you even had seats that faced backwards. The Volkswagen or whatever that had
the station wagon.
Yes, and it was like the coolest car if your friend had one to get to go, I want to face backwards. And now I think that was probably really dumb to have your everything where the car would potentially rear end you. You have no protection whatsoever. And you would think that we're developing as a society and recognizing these things and putting in airbags and all of that to protect people, because of course we want to save lives, just like we want to cure cancer. But there's a fine line, I guess, of where is the government, where is it their place, I guess, versus, innovation in general to require it.
I'm going to take a step way to the side here. You're talking about those station wagons that had the rear well, we call it the well, and you can face backwards, and the kids would face back. I forget, maybe I was in high school, college, or something like that. I'm driving through Mountain Village. I'm stopped at the light, one of the lights. There used to be a Chevron station where Ahi is now. And there's a family in front of us, running carpool. And these kids were staring out the back. And I'm right up against them. And I stuck my hands in my ears, my thumbs in my ears, and made her scrunch my face and stuck my tongue out at these kids, trying to be funny. And one of them just starts bawling, crying. Just absolutely just bawling, crying. And I was like, no, I didn't mean to make you cry. I was trying to make you laugh. And then I ended up passing it with Mom, and she gave me the evil eye and all that stuff. So, yeah, I remember those days.
The creepy man.
I was the creepy man that made the mean face at the kids. So it's, yeah, I do remember all this. Sam, you probably don't remember a time in your life when the government wasn't really a nanny state.
No, and all those things have some sort of externality involved with it, and what typically, I guess the idea is to protect people from themselves a little bit so that it doesn't hurt the kind of greater good, whether it's smoking cigarettes before you can make that decision for yourself because it's going to cause health issues, it's going to impact the health system, same with seatbelts, helmets, what have you. I mean, that's typically what we're trying to protect and prevent there, but it really does beg the question, what's the government's role in that? And even on a greater scale, or maybe not a greater scale, but these mergers and acquisitions that are getting blocked in U.S., U.K., what's the government's role in trying to protect people from kind of themselves?
Well, I would say I think the government's actions are largely hypocritical in a lot of ways. Yeah, it's easy to pass a seatbelt rule. I mean, who could really argue with that? It's really not that much of an imposition. It truly isn't.
Right.
But my God, people sure thought it was. Government telling me what to do. I mean, and truly, but it wasn't that much of an imposition. We have excise taxes on tobacco. We have excise taxes on alcohol, trying to get people to cut back their consumption. Oh, by the way, it generates a lot of revenue for the government. And we do all these things, and they're kind of flashy, and you have to have airbags. You have to do all this and the other thing. And yet, Sam, we give the sugar industry a ton of subsidies.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of things where things are obviously causing a lot of problems in our country. I would say, not trying to be too political, but we're having fentanyl just go straight across the Mexican border. And at the meantime, just border security, from what I can tell, is about as lax as it's been in the last couple decades. So the government's saying, you got to do this, you got to do this. At the same time, we have some things that are truly killing Americans that the government's not doing anything about, and actually even subsidizing their behavior. So I would say, hey, if the government's going to be a nanny state, I don't like it. I like my individual liberties, but even so, let's apply it a little bit more evenly across the board.
Right. It's very much, they kind of pick and choose. I mean, sugar is one we talked about this probably a couple of years ago at this point. But, that's something that very clearly does have lots of externalities around it. I mean, the impact that overall obesity and sugar consumption's having on our health system is just massive. I mean, we are one of the most unhealthy developed countries, if not the most unhealthy developed countries, and that's a large part of it. And so to not really have it there, but to have it in some other areas doesn't fully make sense.
Yeah, and I guess people are like, if I want to be fat, let me be fat.
Okay, well, if I want to smoke cigarettes when I'm 17, let me smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there's externalities to everyone's decision.
Sure.
Because if, let's say Oakworth Capital Bank, 150 employees, if 100 of them are obese and have diabetes, that's obviously going to drive up our health insurance costs for the company and then also for the other associates. So, I mean, truthfully, there's really very few decisions that an individual can make that won't have some sort of impact on someone else. It's a question when that person's decisions actually infringes on the rights of the other people. And I would say, I don't know if the government's doing this even-handedly.
They're not. To me, it begs the question more of, should they be doing it really at all? I mean, it seems like probably some obvious things, I think age limits on things are a little bit different, when your brain's not fully developed to make decisions that have, poor consequences for both you and kind of society as a whole.
Well, let me ask you this one. At what age did you have your first beer?
Ooh.
Probably around 18, 17.
Okay, how about you, Courtney?
I'd say about the same.
Okay. Late bloomers, you two.
Yeah.
I think
my parents weren't weird about like 15. If you wanted to have a sip, but it wasn't that I was... I wasn't gonna, I wouldn't have like a glass of wine by myself, and I was like, "Ew, this doesn't taste good." Like I didn't want it.
So kind of going back to the nanny state. Let's see how big a nannies you two are, being in different generations than I'm. I'll start with you, Courtney, because it's probably going to be a little bit more of an issue for you coming up sooner rather than later. I think your eldest is 10.
No.
9.
Yeah, well, about to be. Yes.
Okay. What do you think the drinking age in the country should be?
21.
18.
All right, I think it should be 18 as well. Now, why do you think 21, Courtney?
Well, realistically, to your point, John, even if the age limit is 21, people are still drinking at, as Sam noted, 18.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was legal at 18, you were drinking at 15. And so that's kind of my thought is like he's probably going to consume alcohol earlier. I mean, that's a big thing in college. So I would like to postpone that because I think that when you put a lot of testosterone together specifically,
Wait a second. What are you talking about?
you can have a lot
You're
of
delving off into my
young
toxic
men don't always make
masculinity
the
here.
best decisions. And so I just think when you add
I knew
alcohol,
plenty of young ladies in college that made pretty poor decisions as well.
yes, but there are some things that correlate more with boys, and I just hope that he can, wait a little bit longer. I'm not naive to think that he won't, but
Apparently you are. I just want to let you know.
I know he's gonna drink. I just hope that he does it responsibly.
Look, I just think it's hypocritical. You can go die in the military and can't have a beer.
Well, you can vote.
But
Yeah.
you can drink on bases, can't you?
What do you mean?
Is that a dumb thing to say?
I don't really know the drinking rules on bases, but I mean, doesn't matter if you're 18 in the military, you can't go to a bar in Vestavia.
Right.
All right, and how about this one? Should you have to wear a helmet if you're a motorcycle rider?
No.
Yes. That's stupid. Why would
No.
you get on a motorcycle and not wear a helmet? I don't even let my kids ride bikes without helmets. I mean,
It makes it marginally safer.
no, they can't see. Like, you basically are invisible on the road. So you should always have a helmet.
Okay, then just ban motorcycles in general. They're
No.
already
Hey,
extremely
listen,
unsafe.
temper, both of you. Look at you, Courtney.
We had a
Your face is as
motorcycle.
red as a beet.
No, we had a
You're Miss
motorcycle,
Tomato
and
Head
I-
over here.
And I
It's a
bought, like,
hothead.
protective.
Talking about
protective.
testosterone.
Have you ever had a motorcycle? Like a street, right.
No, because
okay,
I've
so
seen bodies scraped across streets and
Exactly.
they had helmets. Didn't really help.
Well, I personally think that you should have a helmet. But I don't know that the government should tell you. If you want to be stupid and not wear one, that's
Yeah,
your
a
own.
motorcycle's
Well, that's what it's
already,
for,
yeah. There's already, you are taking such a high level of risk already being on a motorcycle. I mean, there's not really minor incidents with motorcycles.
If I were a motorcycle rider, if I had a motorcycle, I'd probably get some like cool sort of type helmet. Like
Okay.
a Prussian hat, a spike.
Yeah, with the spikes
Actually
along
called
the
a
side.
pickle hop. Oh, that's what they're actually called.
You'd be riding one of those motorcycles with like the big back side where you can stretch out like the handlebars. And
Yeah,
let
that's
your
called a
legs
hog.
straight- hog.
Or a chopper.
Yeah.
Actually, it's called a chopper.
Chopper.
I probably wouldn't be riding a chopper. I wouldn't be able to get off of it. All right. Another. How about some more Nanny State questions? All right. Do you think the government should tax sugar consumption in the form of a soda tax?
Yes.
Sure. I don't drink a lot of soda.
I think and arguably, I'm pretty against a lot of taxes, but that's something that has just inconsequential amounts of externalities and impact on our overall society. I mean, you mentioned it. If everyone at Oakworth was sick and unhealthy, that impacts the people that aren't.
Well, it's also impacting our national defense because we have so many fat and obese people of military age that don't qualify for the minimum requirements.
Yeah, we had to change it.
Yeah.
What are the minimum requirements
You
on your
can't,
weight?
you can't have like a BMI or something like that of X and over X, and I'd probably meet the
even, like-
minimum criteria. So, and I've put on some pounds over the last couple of years, and so it would be people who are kind of obese or morbidly obese, and we just something like 70% of military aged youth are not eligible because of their health issues.
I thought
crazy.
like through boot camp and stuff, you could lose.
Yeah, you can't lose enough in boot camp.
Oh,
I mean, these are people that can't run a lap around the track,
okay.
that type of thing.
Jeez.
So I don't know. I mean, it sounds to me as though we all have elements that we want a little bit of nanny state, but maybe we can't pick and choose.
I don't necessarily. I think having people pay for the damage that they're causing overall to society and themselves, that they're gonna eventually lean on other people in the government for at some point to go ahead and pay up for that. I think that's different than necessarily banning it or telling people what they can and can't have.
What's the difference though from being like innovative and it being like a cool feature versus like
sugar?
the government. No, not with sugar, but with the government like forcing control. So I'm thinking of, now in new vehicles they have to have a rear camera. And that to me is like a really cool feature that it has a rear camera. It makes it super easy to back up, to park, and it also prevents you from running over a dog, a child, somebody.
You have loose children in your neighborhood.
Yes, you got to watch that.
Well,
so,
I mean, how does with your car the way it is currently with the bicycle rack on the back of it, does that interfere with your rear view camera?
It does not.
Yeah.
And but that's, to me, I'm like, that's an innovative way. That's a cool feature. But now it's required that new cars have it to save the lives of children and I guess animals, but I think it's mostly focused on children.
Number of squirrels in our neighborhood, the government doesn't care too much.
Right, yeah. But, I think that's also, I can't think of it. I'm sure there's other examples, but, of like things that people wouldn't necessarily be upset. I mean, a helmet even, like, you think about that with football.
Should you wear a helmet when you're driving a car?
Why do we wear helmets with football?
Well, I will tell you that.
They used to not, and then now they have helmets that like move so that it help prevent concussions.
Well, I will tell you this: my bigger problem is unfunded mandates, and that's what you hear municipalities talk about. They've got to do all this stuff because Washington says so, but they don't gain money to do it. Like the seatbelt thing, that's kind of an unfunded. The government just tell me to do something.
You mean like to the car industry?
Yeah, it's just you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, and all that stuff. Right. I will tell you this though. I like Sam's idea. If you want to discourage a particular type of behavior, tax it. Truthfully. Maybe get away from all these mandates. And if the government wants to get rid of fossil fuel cars, which apparently they do, instead of having all these mandates, why don't you just increase the gasoline tax?
Yeah, I mean, if your activity or choice or whatever you're doing essentially creates jobs for other people, whether that's extra healthcare workers, picking up after wrecks or unhealthy people. I mean, even in the trading industry, there's trading fees that go towards funding the organizations that have to protect equal trading in the securities industry.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you trade a lot, there has to be people that regulate that and make sure you're kind of staying above legal requirements. It kind of makes perfect sense to me.
But that's like negative reinforcement versus positive reinforcement, in the sense that you're punishing them should they choose to do something rather than rewarding them for doing something else.
It's not necessarily punishing, it's paying for what you're doing.
No, you're penalizing them because they're choosing to do that. Whereas you could say, instead of penalizing you for this, we will reward you for
If
doing
I smoke
this.
Cigarettes my entire life, I'm either going to die most likely of heart failure, or maybe if I somehow make it through heart failure, of lung failure or cancer at some point. That's going to be a massive weight on the health system. It's going to be a massive weight on the government health care that I'm eventually going to be a part of if I even make it to that point.
And it's going to be a massive weight on the conscience of the executives at Altria, because they're going to be very upset that you consumed their product and died.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm being kind of sarcastic
Right,
about
yes.
that.
But I am causing all those expenses down the line if I choose to do that.
What's interesting about we're talking about tobacco. The tobacco industry had these huge settlements with the governments years ago. I mean, Sammy probably don't even remember that, but I mean, it's just all this. And the tobacco industry paid out umpteen billions of dollars, and everyone was happy. States got their money.
Umpteen billion.
And states got their money. Everyone's as happy as a pig in sunshine. And what happened? A lot of local municipalities complained.
Oh, because their revenue went down?
Because people weren't smoking as much. And when people don't smoke as much, local municipalities don't get that sales tax. So a decline in smokers over the years has actually been a negative impact on cities' budgets and what have you. So, but I will tell you this, though. I don't mind the idea of a nanny state in the way that Sam is talking. If we are going to tax people for doing sort of antisocial behavior, then they should pay for it. It's kind of like every time that I read about someone that's doing some outrageous sort of sports sort of type deal, they're going into the Grand Canyon by themselves with no water, trying to live extreme, and they have to get pulled out by helicopter, I feel as though they should have to pay for it.
Sure.
I mean, all that type of stuff. So that's the quickest way of influencing behavior instead of mandating something from afar is make people pay for it.
I mean, that's even what a gas tax essentially is. I mean, at least in this perfect theory, if it actually worked as it should, is that I drive I have to get gas to drive, and when I drive, I cause damage to roads.
Yeah.
So I should be at least paying for some of the damage that I'm causing. Maybe not in that exact moment with each tank, but I mean, I'm causing damage across the roadways every time I drive my truck. And so ideally, the gas tax is me paying back.
And interestingly enough, they always have to have a separate highway bill at some point in time because it feels all that money that the government collects in gas tax gets spent in some other ways besides
That's why I
improving
said
roads.
in perfect
So it seems
theory.
like y'all are supporting tax increases.
I think in the right areas.
It's the
yeah.
usage fees, truly,
Yeah.
truthfully, usage fees. That's how I'd view that. I'd view that as
So
a
every
usage
road
fee.
should it be a toll road?
Listen,
I'm fine with toll
I
roads.
got to tell you, when I was up visiting Tim up in our Charlotte office, they have toll roads. I mean, from Davidson down into Charlotte City Center, and you've got a tag on your car. And they will post how much it costs to drive in this particular lane at a given time, and you can choose to drive in it or drive it or not.
And private toll roads.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
aren't you
there's-
already paying that in your taxes? I mean, you're already paying to the state. I mean, can they not maintain their roads based off that?
It actually, I will tell you this, it actually helps improve the flow of traffic because those people are in a hurry or what have you will
they don't
happily
care.
pay the additional money in order to get in the fast lane, and other people that aren't as big of a hurry will stay in the slower lanes. And so you have your choice as a consumer. Do you want to get to downtown Charlotte quicker? Well, if you do, it's going to cost you a little extra money. If you're okay, just staying
So
over
it's
here, it
totally
doesn't cost you
based
money.
off the lanes? Because in Florida, there are toll roads
Yes.
and like you can't pass it. Like they either mail you a charge or you can stop and pay it. But it's like $1.50, or it's not very much.
paying for the building of bridges and such.
Right.
Yeah. That's another nanny state, I guess, making you pay. And
Nickel and diming you.
I think you're paying either way.
Right.
Whether
Maybe
they just
they're
tax
trying to-
everybody or just tax the people that are actually going to use it.
Yeah.
All right, so kind of going back where we were kind of running along on this one today, kind of going back to that original reel that Courtney and I were laughing about, the rednecks and the trucks and the rednecks talking about drinking beer. All right, let's get back to get some more questions. Sam, do you think, Sam, Courtney, should we have a seatbelt law?
Yes.
I'm iffy.
All right, there you have it. All right.
Sure.
Should there be an open container law in the cars?
I'm iffy on that one as well.
Yeah. I don't think we should have one.
Well, that right there, Courtney is saying that sometimes when they go out, she has a
They're-
go cup. Yeah, they're
No,
right there.
I
That's what
just-
you said.
Already.
I think that if you can consume alcohol responsibly, I don't think that.
So do you know what the term roadie means?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well then I think that's
That
answering
answers
enough.
the
Yeah,
question.
answering the question right there. All right, and
Thankfully, I'm not running for political office in my life.
you
so-
never will be after this
I know
podcast.
exactly.
Do you think finally that we should have the mandated child seat requirements and the technology that is now involved in this? Understanding that I was one that got through being thrown in the well of the station wagon. And with the exception of the PTSD, I turned out okay.
PTSD.
So Courtney, you're the one that's worrying about this now. Do you think we should have such stringent child safety seats?
Yes,
What do you
I
think?
guess so.
Yeah, it's
I'd
for the children, I think.
Yeah.
it is. It's
what
for
it
the
is.
babies.
All right. So with that, I'm not sure exactly what all we accomplished today. We kind of went down nostalgia lane, if you will, on some of these things. But really, it does beg the question. Just what is government's role in our private lives? Should it just be able to mandate various things, or should it tax it, or should it tax those behaviors which are antisocial or could have negative outcomes for society as a whole? I'm not sure Washington knows that answer. I don't think Montgomery knows that answer. I don't think Birmingham knows that answer. I don't think Atlanta does. I don't think anyone fully has a full comprehension on just how invasive the government can be, and that can change by or invade in people's lives, and that's going to be different from individual to regions of the country. I would say here in the Deep South, people are less inclined to think the government should be involved in what they do, as opposed to say a Washington State or someplace more liberal. What do you think, Sam?
I agree.
Yes.
All right. Well, guys, we always love to hear from you. Also, if you have any comments or questions, please, by all means, let us know. You can always drop us a line at tradingperspectives@oakworth.com, or you can leave us a review on the podcast outlet of your choice. As always, if you're interested in reading more, hearing more of what we have to say or how we think, please, by all means, go to oakworth.com, take a look underneath the Thought Leadership tab, and find all kinds of exciting information, including our new Quarterly magazine,
Yep.
Macro and Market, that's out there underneath the Thought Leadership tab right now. Please, by all means, go out and get it. If you like what you see, please call us up and see how we can be your financial institution of choice.
Ooh, look at
How
that.
about that? All right, guys, y'all have anything else to say on this topic?
That's it.
That's it, John.
That's all I've got today, too. Y'all take care.